The glass walls of the conference room reflected a skyline stitched with 1,000 glowing lights. Sundar Pichai sat at the head of a long, polished table, surrounded by executives and engineers discussing the future of AI integration across Google platforms. The air buzzed with ambition metrics, projections, power moves, but Sundar's mind drifted. On the outside, he looked every bit the global leader, calm, articulate, composed. But inside, he carried a quiet ache that meetings could not mute. He nodded at the right moments, offered concise insights, and closed the meeting with his signature quiet authority. Yet, as he returned to his office, a corner suite with floor-to-ceiling, windows overlooking Mountain View, he didn't look at the city below. He stared at the faint reflection of himself in the glass. Somewhere along the journey from dusty Chennai streets to boardrooms of billionaires, something had faded a part of him he couldn't name, but missed terribly. As he loosened his tie and powered down his laptop, his phone buzzed. It wasn't the usual calendar notification or international number. It was a name he hadn't seen in years. Anjali. His breath caught. He hesitated for a second before answering. Anjali, he said softly. Sundar. Her voice cracked. It had been so long, but he'd know it anywhere. The tone still carried that blend of calm and strength, except tonight there was something else. Strain. Worry. I didn't know if you'd pick up, she whispered. I always will, he said, standing, the city lights suddenly dimming in his mind. Are you okay? She paused, and he could hear her swallow hard. No, I need your help. Those words hit him harder than any crisis call from shareholders or world leaders. Anjali was the one person who never asked for help, even when she should have. She had been the quiet pillar of their childhood. The one who stayed behind when he left for Stanford. The one who wrote letters even when he was too busy to reply. The school, my school. Sundar. The one I built in Emma's name. She continued, her voice breaking now. They're taking it away. Who? He asked, walking toward the window as if the stars might offer some answer. The land office. A local politician struck a deal backdoor. Corrupt. They want the land to build a private resort. They served us an eviction notice today. He felt something tighten in his chest. Have you tried the courts? The press? I tried everything. They don't listen to women like me, poor, brown, local. I'm invisible here unless I become a problem. Her laugh was soft and bitter. Sundar turned away from the glass. He could still picture her younger self, thin frame, untamed hair, always clutching a book to her chest. She had given up college when their mother fell sick. She worked, cooked, took care of him. And when he got the scholarship to America, she had smiled through her tears and packed his bag. I can send money, he said. I can wire it tonight. No, she replied quickly. I'm not calling for money. I'm calling for you. The boy I raised, the one who used to fix broken radios with nothing but wire and willpower. I need him. Sundar didn't speak. He couldn't. Her words reached into something buried deep beneath spreadsheets and polished keynote speeches. I've had 100 children who lose everything, Sundar, their classroom, their safe place, and I don't know what else to do. He closed his eyes, all the power he held in Silicon Valley, and none of it could erase the tremble in her voice. I'll come, he said finally. I'll come home. And for the first time in years, the word home didn't mean this office. It meant a dusty schoolyard in Chennai, a sister who had once carried him through life, and a promise long overdue. The private jet sliced through thick clouds, silent but swift. Inside, Sundar Pichai sat alone, his seatbelt fastened, his heart racing. He'd made hundreds of flights before keynotes in Berlin, policy talks in D.C., product launches in Tokyo. But this one felt heavier than all of them combined, not because of turbulence, but because of what was waiting for him on the ground. Not investors, not cameras, but his sister and a crisis no algorithm could solve. He leaned back in his seat and stared at the ceiling. The hum of the jet engines was soothing, but his thoughts were anything but calm. Every minute that passed felt like time slipping away. From Anjali's school, the one she had built from scratch in their mother's name, a place where children from low-income families were taught to dream, to read, to code, to speak with courage. He remembered the last time he saw her in person. It had been almost 7 years. She stood outside their childhood home in a plain Surrey, smiling as he stepped into his black sedan with tinted windows. He had waved. She had waved. But neither had said the words that needed to be said. Now, she was in trouble. And the The world saw the polished CEO who met heads of state and pioneered tech revolutions felt small again. Not useless, no, but exposed, because Anjali had never asked for help, not even when their father died, not when she sold her gold chain to pay for Sundar's first laptop. The wheels of the jet touched down in Chennai just after midnight. The heat hit him first dense, sticky, familiar, but what struck deeper was the smell: jasmine, diesel, a dust-to-scent cocktail that carried memories like arrows, of riding a bicycle through alleyways, of sitting on a cracked rooftop under the stars, of Anjali humming lullabies to drown out their parents' arguments during hard months. A black SUV awaited him, but this wasn't an official visit. No press, no entourage, just a quiet return. The driver, an old friend from their neighborhood, didn't say much, just nodded and drove. The city had changed. Glass buildings stood where banyan trees once grew. Neon signs replaced temple bells. But in some corners, the past still lived. 45 minutes later, the SUV pulled up to a narrow lane lined with open drains and flickering street lamps. The tires crunched over gravel. At the end of the path stood Anjali's school, or what was left of it. A crumbling compound wall, a tin roof patched with tarpaulin, hand-painted signs in faded blue that read, "Dream bigger than your circumstance." And in the middle of the open yard, sitting cross-legged on the cement floor under the harsh white glow of a tube-light Anjali, she looked up slowly as the car doors shut, their eyes locked, and for a second, nothing moved. Time, breath, regret, all suspended. She stood, slowly, not dramatically, no tears, no rush into his arms, just a stillness that said more than words. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she said, her voice soft but firm. "I told you I would," Sundar replied, stepping forward. They didn't hug. Not yet. Too much unsaid stood between them. Instead, she turned and gestured toward the building. "They served demolition orders this morning. Said we have 48 hours to vacate." Sundar frowned. "On what grounds?" She pulled out a folder from her cloth bag and handed it to him. Inside were crookedly photocopied land records, legal jargon, and one name repeated too many times: Rajiv Menon, a city developer. Anjali explained, "He bought the land next to us, wants to build a private golf resort for foreign tourists. Our little school is in the way." Sundar felt heat rise in his chest. "Did you try the media?" They laughed. "Called us an emotional distraction. Said charity schools are bad for real estate optics." He gripped the folder tighter. This wasn't just corruption. This was erasure. And the courts? Stalled. Delayed. Redirected. You know how it works. He did. And he also knew how fast injustice could win when no one important was watching. But now someone important was. "I want to meet him," Sundar said. "Who?" "Rajiv Menon." Anjali looked at him, surprised. "You're not here for a donation." "I'm here to stop this." For the first time, her shoulders softened. But before she could speak, a loud crash rang out from inside the school. Sundar and Anjali rushed in to find a drunk men smashing a classroom window. Their laughter cruel, their movements clumsy. "Get out," Anjali shouted, grabbing a stick. From behind the door, the men sneered. "This land won't be yours for long, madam. Thought we'd help with the demolition." Sundar stepped forward, his voice calm but cold. "Leave now, or I'll make one phone call and you'll never work in this city again." One of them recognized him then. His eyes widened. You're that Google guy." "Correct," Sundar said, "and this is my sister's school. Your boss just made a very big mistake." The men stumbled out, falling over each other. Silence returned. But the damage wasn't just to the broken glass. They've been sending threats for weeks, Anjali said quietly. Cutting electricity, vandalizing, spreading rumors that were extremists teaching anti-national values. He looked at the room's simple benches, a chalkboard, children's drawings taped to the wall. "And still, you stayed." "I'm not like you, Sundar," she said, with a half-smile. "I don't have the luxury of leaving when things get hard." Her words weren't bitter. They were honest. That night, Sundar didn't sleep in a 5-star hotel. He stayed in a guest cot in the teacher's quarters. No air conditioning, no Wi-Fi, just the soft ceiling fan ticking like an old clock dot at 2 a.m. He walked outside. The school compound was quiet, but his mind was on fire. This wasn't just about land. It was about every forgotten corner of the world, where people like Anjali fought invisible wars and paid, unpraised, but unyielding. And he had power, influence. He had been using it to build new search engines, but maybe it was time to help people find their voice again. He made the calls that night. One to a human rights lawyer he trusted, and one to a rising local journalist known for exposing government land scams. By sunrise, the world would know the story of a little school in Chennai, and the sister who had always protected him was about to discover that her little brother could still protect her too. But what neither of them knew yet was that Rajiv Menon wasn't just a developer. He was something far more dangerous, and Sundar's fight had only just begun. At dawn, Chennai shimmered under a thin veil of morning fog. The schoolyard was quiet, too quiet, as if the very air held its breath. Sundar Pichai stood at the edge of the broken classroom window, sipping a steel tumbler of filtered coffee that Anjali had handed him with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "What happens now?" she asked. Sundar didn't answer immediately. He had already sent out emails at 3 a.m. to lawyers, to journalists, to someone inside Google India who could help amplify the story globally. But what he didn't say yet was that he had also made a more dangerous call, one that went outside his comfort zone. He set the tumbler down. "We meet Rajiv Menon today." Anjali raised an eyebrow. "He won't just walk into a room with us, not without a power imbalance he can exploit." Sundar nodded. "That's why I didn't ask for a meeting." She blinked. "Then how?" "I bought a seat at his fundraiser. Double quote silence. She stared at him. "You bought?" "He's running for parliament, hosting a private dinner tonight. Only CEOs, celebrities, and elite donors. He doesn't know I'm coming yet, but when he sees me, he'll either see opportunity or fear." Anjali crossed her arms. "And what exactly will you say to him?" "I won't say anything at first," Sundar said. "I'll let him show me who he really is." That evening, the fundraiser was held at the Marlowe Grand, an opulent heritage hotel repurposed into a glittering sanctuary for India's political elite. Cars with tinted windows pulled up to a long red carpet, flanked by security in dark suits and earpieces. Inside, marble floors gleamed, chandeliers glistened, and soft violin music played over the low hum of polished conversations. Sundar walked in wearing a charcoal kurta, with subtle gold embroidery, simple, elegant, and utterly out of place among the jewel-toned sherwanas and designer tuxedos. His presence caused a ripple. Whispers spread like fire. "Is that Sundar Pichai, the Google guy? Why is he here?" He ignored them. His eyes scanned the room. Then he saw him, Rajiv Menon. The man was younger than expected, early 40s, with a trimmed beard, slick back hair, and the hollow charm of someone used to getting his way. He laughed loudly as he clinked glasses with foreign investors, gesturing broadly as if he owned the very air around him. Sundar approached. Rajiv turned and froze. For a second, just a second, the polished facade slipped out. Then he smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Well, this is unexpected," he said, extending a hand. "To what do I owe this surprise?" Sundar shook it. "Heard you're interested in shaping the future of India. I figured I should see who's behind the slogans." Rajiv laughed. "Tush, I'm honored. Google CEO in Chennai's own backyard. This isn't about..." He paused, eyes narrowing slightly. "A little school, is it?" So he knew. Sundar's voice remained calm. "It's about what that school represents." Rajiv leaned in. "Listen, I respect your sentimentality, but this is politics. That land was undervalued. My firm acquired it legally. We have a plan. Luxury development, foreign exchange, job creation. And what about the children who call that place their future?" Sundar asked. Rajiv shrugged. "Progress demands sacrifice. You of all people should understand that. After all, you didn't become who you are by holding on to everything." Sundar stepped closer, voice a notch colder now. "You're confusing evolution with erasure." Rajiv's smirk vanished. "And you're confusing sentiment with leverage," he said sharply. "This isn't Silicon Valley. Here, your name might dazzle the press, but it won't move government files. I do that. I know the ministers, the bureaucrats, the police. You're just visiting." Sundar studied him. The arrogance, the calculation, the belief that he was untouchable. But Sundar had built a life by dismantling walls, firewalls, code barriers, market monopolies. And he wasn't about to let a man like Rajiv stand between Anjali and everything she had built. With her bare hands, he leaned in, his voice low and firm. "Then let me tell you what's about to happen tomorrow morning. The Guardian, Al Jazeera, And TechCrunch will publish stories about land corruption involving your firm. I've sent them photos, audio from your contractors threatening school staff, and satellite images of your illegally widened construction zone. Rajiv stiffened. Sundar continued, I also spoke to a Supreme Court advocate. An injunction is coming, and I've donated 10 crore rupees to a new nonprofit, the Anjali Foundation for Equal Education. That will ensure no child school is bulldozed by ambition again. He took a breath. But that's just the start. You'll lose more than land. You'll lose credibility. You'll lose investors. You'll lose the one thing men like you hate losing the most: control. Rajiv's face flushed with fury, but he said nothing because he knew Sundar had just changed the game. Back at the school, Anjali was sitting on a worn mat, helping a student named Mathu learn his multiplication tables. She looked up when Sundar arrived. He looked tired, but lighter, as if a burden had been lifted. You saw him? She asked. I did, and he blinked. She laughed for the first time in days, a soft, surprised laugh. But Sundar wasn't done. He pulled out a folder and handed it to her. What's this? Title deed, under your name now. I bought the land surrounding the school too. He can't touch it. Her eyes filled. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. You protected me when I had nothing, Sundar said quietly. Now it's my turn. And in that moment, under flickering tube light and cracked ceilings, a billionaire CEO knelt before the truest leader he knew, a woman who taught hundreds to read, to hope, to fight. But what neither of them saw as they embraced in the middle of the schoolyard was a dark car idling down the road. Inside, a phone call was being made. He beat us to the press, said a voice. What do we do now? Simple, said another. We make it personal. The rain arrived at midnight. Not the soft drizzle that lulled Chennai to sleep, but the kind that shook windows and drowned silence. It beat against the school's tin roof in waves, like the sky itself was in mourning. But inside the dimly lit staff room, Sundar and Anjali sat cross-legged on the floor, an old woolen shawl shared between them. To paper cups of tea cooling between conversations, too heavy to finish, Anjali stared at the floor. Her hand trembled slightly as she held the edge of a student's sketch crayons on brown paper. It was a crude drawing of the school, with stick-figure children standing in the rain, holding hands. In the top corner, written in neat, lopsided letters, My future. She held it like it was glass. Sundar was watching her closely. You okay? She didn't look up. You know, what's worse than losing a building? She said quietly. Watching children learn fear. That's what this fight is doing. It's teaching them to be afraid of dreaming. Sundar didn't reply. He just reached over and placed his hand gently over hers. Then her phone rang. She picked it up. Her face changed. She stood, voice suddenly sharp. Who is this? Sundar rose quickly too, watching her face drain of color. No, she whispered into the phone. Please don't, please listen to me. She froze. The line went dead. Sundar stepped closer. What happened? She didn't answer. Instead, she slowly turned the phone screen toward him. One message glowed under the rain-drenched glass. You brought him here. He humiliated us. Now watch what we take from you. And below it, a photograph of a young boy, skinny, maybe 11 years old, her student, Mathu, the same child she had helped earlier with multiplication tables. The photo showed him sitting on the floor of a room that wasn't familiar. No context, just a blurred figure behind him and a shadow on the wall. Sundar's voice turned cold. Who sent this? Anjali's voice cracked. I don't know. It was a private number. He didn't wait. He pulled out his own phone and called an old Google security executive, now working in India's cyber division. I need a trace on a message. High priority. We've got a child in danger, Sundar said, pacing. I'll send the screenshot and metadata. 30 minutes later, the response came. The number had bounced between 5 towers, masked through a ghost SIM, but the location, pinged once, accidentally, just for a second, an abandoned textile mill on the outskirts of Kanchipuram. Sundar turned to Anjali. You're staying here. She didn't move. No. He stepped forward. Anjali, this is dangerous. He's my student, she said. Her voice didn't shake this time. It rang like steel. You came for me. I'm going for him. Sundar stared at her for a moment, then nodded once. They didn't wait for police. To slow. To bureaucratic. To easily bought. Instead, Sundar used his network. To security consultants from Singapore. Both ex-military, were already on a red-eye to India for another Google security audit. He rerouted them midair. By dawn, Sundar, Anjali, and the team of two pulled up to the outskirts of the decrepit textile mill. A massive concrete skeleton followed by vines and broken glass. Inside, every creak was a threat. They moved silently, Sundar holding a flashlight. The ex-operative scanning with night vision. A faint sound echoed from the west wing, a soft, rhythmic tapping. Muthu. They found him bound by the wrists in an empty shipping crate, frightened but unharmed, no visible bruises, but his lips quivered. "It's okay," Anjali whispered, tears falling. "We've got you." Sundar scooped him into his arms. "We're going home." But just as they turned to leave, footsteps, not one, several, voices, murmurs, flashlights flicked on. Shadows moved in the corridors, armed guards, now police, hired muscle. And then Rajiv Menon. He stepped forward from the shadows like a man who'd just lost a war, but wanted to destroy something on his way down. "You really think you can humiliate me on the world stage and walk away?" he hissed. "This is India, Sundar, not your press-friendly Silicon Valley. You don't get to win here just because you gave a speech and built an app." Sundar didn't flinch. "You kidnapped a child," Rajiv smirked. "Technically, he wandered in. We just kept him safe. No bruises, no blood, just a misunderstanding, right?" The way he said it was venomous, calculated. "You crossed the line," Sundar said. Rajiv shrugged. "You broke the rules first. You brought foreign media into my backyard. You bought my silence. You threatened my future. So now, I return the favor." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a thin USB drive. He held it like it was a detonator. "You want to protect your little sister's reputation, sure. But what about your own?" Sundar's eyes narrowed. "What is that?" "A copy of a forged document," Rajiv said, smiling wider now. "One that claims your sister accepted a bribe to fund the school. Just enough to make the public wonder. Enough to spark an investigation. You know how it goes. Truth takes time. Headlines don't." Anjali went still. "You forged it?" she asked, her voice hollow. Rajiv's smile widened. "I don't have to. I just have to leak it." Sundar's silence was deadly. Then he stepped forward slowly. "You're right," he said. "This isn't Silicon Valley." He reached into his jacket and pulled out his own phone. But even in India, phones have cameras. He pressed a button from his pocket speaker. A soft beep. Behind Rajiv, one of the ex-paramilitary guards stepped forward and held up a tiny recording device. "Everything you just said," Sundar continued, "was recorded, video, audio, location tagged." Rajiv froze. Sundar stepped closer, eyes locked. "Try releasing that fake document, and I'll release this, along with footage from the room where Mathu was kept, every media house, every legal office, every child's parent, and then I'll make sure you're not just removed from politics, you'll be remembered as the man who tried to destroy a school and terrorize a child." Rajiv's face twisted. Fury, desperation, fear. But he said nothing. He turned and walked away into the rain, his guards following. Back at the school, Mathu sat in the courtyard, wrapped in a thick blanket. His mother sobbed into Anjali's arms, holding him so tightly he could barely breathe. Sundar stood beside them, watching, absorbing. And then he turned. He walked to the press waiting outside. Dozens of cameras, reporters, mixed shoved forward. They were already buzzing with half-rumors. Google CEO involved in local scandal, kidnapping, corruption. He raised his hand. Silence. And then he said, "My sister built this school with nothing but her salary and her soul. When I was a boy with no laptop, no internet, no privilege, she believed in me. Everything I am today started with her. So if anyone wants to question her, they're going to have to question me first. And I will not be silent." He paused, then added, "This isn't just about one school. This is about every child told their dreams don't matter. This is about reminding the world that real education doesn't need marble floors. It needs people who care and people who show up." Behind him, Anjali wiped her tears. The crowd was silent. And then, slowly, it erupted. In applause, in chants, in camera shutters, in something bigger than truth belief. It began with one clip, 18 seconds long. A simple video uploaded by a local journalist outside Anjali's school. Sundar Pichai's voice, raw and unfiltered, played against the backdrop of children laughing behind him. "This isn't just about one school. This is about every child told their dreams don't matter. The video went viral in less than an hour. By morning, it had 17 million views across platforms. By noon, hashtags like hashtag Anjali school, hashtag stand with Sundar, and hashtag education first were trending in 6 languages. And by evening, India was awake. The footage of the abandoned mill, the photo of Mathu, the recorded threats, the forged bribe document. Sundar had released it all, not through a press conference, not through Google PR, but through a handwritten letter posted online, signed by both him and Anjali. We have no interest in revenge, but we do have a duty to protect those who can't fight alone. The internet caught fire. Major news anchors wept on live television. Children in village schools made signs that read "Anjali is our Amma." Parents wrote letters from across the country thanking Sundar for standing beside a teacher, not above her. And Rajiv Menon, he vanished, but his problems didn't. 3 government agencies launched formal investigations into Menon's land acquisitions. Properties were seized. His political party cut ties within 24 hours. The Election Commission froze his campaign funds. His name, once whispered with fear, was now a cautionary tale. But the fallout wasn't over, because while Sundar had won the war in Chennai, a storm was now building in New Delhi. 3 days later, Sundar and Anjali were summoned to the capital. The Prime Minister's office requested a private audience. Officially, it was a discussion on educational reform and private sector collaboration. Unofficially, it was damage control inside the historic South Block complex. Sundar walked past red sandstone pillars flanked by elite security and paused before an arched wooden door. Anjali stood beside him in a plain cotton saree, her hands folded neatly. She looked calm. She looked ready. But inside the chamber, waiting for them, was a table full of powerful people: cabinet ministers, bureaucrats, tech advisors, people who didn't like being made to look weak in the public eye, people who were not used to losing control of the narrative. The meeting began politely. Compliments, smiles, tea. But then came the question, "You understand the implications of what you've done?" asked the education secretary, his voice clipped. "You've embarrassed multiple ministries. You've triggered protests in 5 states. You've politicized a private land matter on a global scale." Sundar met his gaze evenly. "I didn't politicize it. I humanized it. Words matter, Mr. Pichai," said a man in a navy suit. "When they come from you, they don't just trend. They shift stock markets." Anjali finally spoke. Her voice was clear, unapologetic. "If one video can shake your foundation, maybe your foundation wasn't strong to begin with." The room fell silent. Sundar looked at her, proud. The Prime Minister entered 5 minutes later. He sat across from them, his expression unreadable. "We've had calls from ambassadors, from Silicon Valley investors, from children," he said with a faint smile. "A 12-year-old from Bihar sent me a poem about Anjali's school, called it the house where tomorrow was born." Anjali lowered her eyes. "I didn't mean for any of this to become political. I just wanted to protect my students." "And now," the PM said slowly, "you've started a movement." He stood and walked to the window, then turned. "We want to partner with you, not just for one school, but for 100, maybe 1,000, across every state. A model built by real educators, backed by tech. Are you willing?" Sundar's heart thudded. He looked at Anjali. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she asked, "On one condition." The room tensed. Teachers will lead, not bureaucrats, not politicians, not contractors, real teachers. The Prime Minister smiled. "Done." The press conference that followed stunned the world. Standing on the steps of Rashtrapati Bhavan, the president's estate, Sundar Pichai announced the Anjali Initiative, a nationwide education revolution to be jointly led by Google India and the Ministry of Education. But it wasn't just funding. It was personal. "We're not building walls. We're building bridges between children and their future, between policy and humanity, between power and people who deserve it." Behind him, Anjali held a simple wooden slate, the kind used by rural students. On it, written in chalk, "Every child is worth saving." But just when the applause began to fade and hope seemed to settle, another call came. Late at night. No ID, just a single word: "Run." Sundar jolted upright in his hotel bed. He answered, but the line was dead. Seconds later, the security alarm blared. Anjali's suite just 2 doors away had been breached. Sundar ran barefoot down the corridor, heart pounding. He found the Door open, the guards on the floor unconscious, not dead. The room was trashed, papers scattered, laptop stolen, and on the mirror, written in red marker, "Your fight just made you a target." The next 72 hours unfolded like a slow-motion explosion. The attack on Anjali's hotel suite wasn't just a break-in, it was a message. Someone, maybe the remnants of Rajiv Menon's political network, or someone higher, wanted Sundar and Anjali to know that their growing influence wasn't welcome, not in politics, not in education, not in a country where silence was often currency. No one claimed responsibility. No cameras caught faces. But Sundar knew this wasn't over. It had only changed shape. Security was doubled. The Prime Minister's office condemned the act, but behind closed doors, they advised Sundar to step away quietly. "You've lit the fire," a senior official told him. "Now let it burn on its own." But Sundar didn't come this far to retreat, and Anjali, she was done being afraid. That night, as the city buzzed outside their new secure safe house, Sundar sat by the window staring at Delhi's darkened skyline. Anjali joined him, a blanket around her shoulders, her voice quiet. "You could have walked away so many times, so could you," he replied. She smiled, but it was sad. "They'll come again. I know. They'll hit where it hurts most. I know." And then she whispered what he had never heard her say, not even in their worst childhood moments. "What if something happens to you because of me?" He turned to her. His voice didn't waver. "Then I'll have done something that finally mattered." The following morning, Sundar stood before a crowd of over 5,000 people at India Gate. It was meant to be a quiet event, but when students from across the country heard Sundar Pichai and Anjali would be there together, they came from small villages, from crowded cities, some by train, some barefoot, teachers, parents, street kids, scholars, a sea of belief. And in front of them all, under the soft morning sun, Sundar took no podium. He stood among them, just a mic in his hand and his sister beside him. He didn't speak as a CEO. He spoke as a brother. "This woman beside me gave me the world, and when the world tried to take hers, she stood anyway. Not for fame, not for fortune, but for the children no one sees, for the teachers no one thanks. We are not leaving. We are not hiding, and we are not afraid." The crowd erupted, but somewhere in that crowd, eyes were watching. Someone raised a phone and pressed send. Across India, phones buzzed with a sudden breaking alert. A new scandal. Not about Sundar. About Anjali, a forged video, carefully edited. She was shown accepting an envelope in her classroom. The headline, "Anjali caught taking foreign bribe for influence." It exploded within minutes. Opposition leaders called for a full investigation. Troll farms swarmed her with abuse. Paid media anchors dissected her acting humble while being corrupt. Sundar watched it unfold from the green room of a small community event that evening. His hands shook, not because he believed it, but because he knew how fast lies traveled when truth walked barefoot. Anjali sat beside him, silent. Not because she was guilty, because she had seen this before. When a woman rises, people find new ways to break her down. "They'll believe what they want to," she said, voice hollow. "Even if we prove it's fake, the doubt will remain. You know that, right?" He nodded. "They didn't just try to destroy my school this time. They tried to destroy me." Sundar stood. "Then let's show them who you really are." That night, Sundar Pichai did what few world leaders ever do. He went live from his personal account. No edits, no filters, no handlers. Just him and Anjali, sitting side by side in the same dusty school courtyard in Chennai where it had all begun. The video hit 60 million views in 3 hours. He told the story. Their story. Of how Anjali raised him, sacrificed for him, built a school with her savings, fought corruption with nothing but her voice. And then he handed the mic to her. She looked into the lens and didn't blink. If you think one fake video can silence the truth, then you never met a teacher who refused to give up on her students. "This isn't about me. It's about you, the next generation, and what kind of country we want to build for them." She paused and finished with a line that would be quoted for generations. "You can erase files, not values." The tide turned. Again. Cyber experts tore the fake video apart frame by frame. Within a day, the source was traced to a digital lab linked to the same corrupt circle that once protected Rajiv Menon. This time, they weren't just exposed. They were arrested. 2 weeks later, Anjali returned to her school. But this time, she didn't walk in alone. Sundar was beside her. So were the Supreme Court judges, 25 education reformers, and 100 journalists from around the world. A new plaque had been installed at the school gate, the Anjali model, India's first public dream lab built by teachers, protected by truth. Inside, children cheered. Mother ran up to her with a new slate and chalk. "I want to be a teacher one day," he said, grinning. Anjali knelt beside him. "You already are," she whispered. "You taught the whole country how to be brave." As the sun set and reporters packed their bags, Sundar stood quietly at the school's edge. He watched the kids running in the courtyard, heard their laughter, saw the walls repaired, the paintings restored, the future rebuilt. Anjali walked over, wiping her hands on her cotton kurta. "I never thought it would come to this," she said. "Me neither," Sundar replied. Then he turned to her. "But I do know one thing." She looked up. "If I had to give up everything I've built to protect this place, I'd do it in a heartbeat." She smiled, and for the first time in a long time, the world felt right again.